Hello everyone, and welcome to my revised reading of the NES Godzilla Creepypasta. Now you're probably thinking, why? Didn't you already do that a couple months ago with the original narration of it? Well, yeah, but after watching my first narration of it, I thought, the way I did it wasn't very good. Like, sure, I showed the stuff I was reading, but for one thing, it was at the sacrifice of quality, because after watching my stream, like the first episode of that, I mean, the webcam is good, don't get me wrong, it's just the quality got choppy, the frame rate got choppy, and all that stuff. So I thought, why not narrate it again, but at the expense of not being able to show you guys what's going on. Also, if you guys heard that little bit of music, that was actually from the original NES Godzilla game, Monster of Monsters. Anyways, you're probably thinking, so what is this Godzilla Creepypasta? Well, if I may pull up the history, I also have a tab on my laptop opened up just for that. Actually, let me go to my stream. Oh, it shows me streaming now whenever I pop back on. But you're probably thinking, now, who created this Godzilla Creepypasta? When did they create it, and why? I'm about to tell y'all before going into this little story, ladies and gents. The person who made it? Cosby Daff. No, I'm not trying to say, Bill Cosby. Yeah. This guy right here is awesome. Probably thinking, okay, well, what did he do that was so crazy? Well, Cosby Daff is actually the original creator of the Godzilla Creepypasta. And what's even cooler is that because of his story, there's actually a fan game being made. You can download the demo right now on a website called Alone Works, spelled ALLONE-works.com. And if you want to be more specific, after the .com bit, put a slash and then put NGC and then another slash, and it'll take you to the website. Alternatively, you could just search for Cosby Daff on Google, and it'll show you a link to DeviantArt. You don't have to have a DeviantArt account just to see it, but all you really need is to go to that, look on their profile, and you can click on a tab that says Journal, and it'll take you to things that they've done. But, yeah, so Cosby Daff was the original author of, oh, hi. Oh, hey, Caden, I'm doing pretty good. I'm getting ready to narrate the Godzilla Creepypasta again. I know I did it before, but I feel that the quality of that stream pales in comparison to when I originally did it, which was a couple months ago. And I think, maybe if I stream on PS4, even though I won't be able to show anything, because I don't think I'm able to live stream while I'm on Internet Explorer on there. It'd be kind of cool if I did, though, but I don't know. But I thought about it, and I thought, why not restream that? But instead of having to show stuff, I could have a tab on my laptop open, so that way it's not all clunky and it's not like low in quality, because the original stream of the Godzilla Creepypasta narration, I was using a webcam I got a couple months ago before E3, and I was going to use that to film E3, and the video quality for the creepypasta wasn't very good, because granted, there was a good frame rate here and there, but then it would get all choppy, the video quality would get all and all that stuff, so I thought, why not redo that? Like, I watched my first episode of it a couple minutes ago before I started streaming this, and I thought, I could do better. I know I won't be able to show anything, but since I'm on PS4, I could stream, and, you know, this mic is very, very good. Like, you can hear the quality right here. Also, thank you for the like, whoever that was. I'm pretty sure that was Caden. But hold on. I don't know. I'm having so much trouble doing one thing. Yeah, I'm saying a lot. That's a whole lot of struggle. But what's really good about the Godzilla Creepypasta is, obviously it's a creepypasta, so it's not really real. Although, again, there is a fan game being made in collaboration with the original creator of the creepypasta. But the creator themselves, they literally did a whole bunch of the sprite work for the alleged, you know, screenshots. And it's so authentic that you would think that it is real, but it's not. It's all sprite work and all that stuff. They even have animated images of some of the creatures in the thing. And what's even better is that those animated pictures of the enemies and stuff, those are actually for the fan game. Well, it's not really a fan game if it's made in collaboration with, you know, Cosby Dab. But I digress. How about we cut the idle chit chat and get to the stuff. I like how as soon as I say that, I start choking on spit. Anyways, starting off with Chapter 1, Earth and Mars. When I was a little kid, the two things I loved most in life were Godzilla and NES games. So naturally, when Godzilla Monsters came out, it was like a dream. There we go again, messing up on basic speech. That's not part of the story, that's just me commentating on myself. It was like a dream come true. Well, almost. To sum it up, most of the game revolved around getting through very repetitive outer space levels while smashing up tanks and jets, then fighting against Godzilla's monster enemies. Overall, it was pretty mediocre, but back then I didn't care. When I got the game as a present for my 10th birthday, I played it night and day, as much as I could. Unfortunately, I traded the game for Amagon a year later. Sorry. Trust me, my laptop screen is smaller than my TV, so it's not easy to read that. I'm not saying my eyesight's bad, it's just letters are small on this damn thing. Anyways, unfortunately I traded the game for Amagon a year later, much to my regret when I found out what that game was like. Recently I bought a new NES system, and through a lot of hunting and asking around, my friend Billy finally managed to find a copy of Godzilla Monsters. Anyways, I was pumped to play my favorite childhood game. It had never occurred to me to ask where Billy found it. He also gave me some other games like Legend of Zelda, Bomberman, and some stupid thing called Action 52. But Godzilla had to come first. Okay, I'm gonna stop right here and I'm just gonna say this. Action 52 sucked balls, so of course they would skimp out on it. And I like that detail where they said it was a stupid thing, because in reality, yeah, it was terrible. Now I know the Godzilla game itself wasn't too well received, but I've actually played it on a, if I can grab it, this thing. This is a RetroPie. It's actually a Raspberry Pi 3, but it's really good. It's a really cool system. It's an emulator, so it's not really a real system, but think of it like an NES Classic, Super NES Classic, all that stuff. It runs games extremely well. It even does N64, PS1, all that stuff. And it just so happens that one of the games on there for NES, it's Godzilla Godzilla Monster of Monsters, not the Godzilla Creepypasta. In fact, what's really funny is, and sorry for deviating from the topic, but I decided to actually play the game just because I kept thinking about the creepypasta, and I'm like, take that, I ain't seeing red today, sister. Anyways, now let's get back to some stuff. Forget what I said about the red thing. That has red. Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, I'm totally not talking about anything related to this. Shut up. So I started the game, and the nostalgia came flooding back like a tidal wave. Godzilla's 8-bit theme flooded proudly through the speakers, and I was soon grinning like an idiot. I will now play said theme, because, I mean, I actually like that game, okay? It's pretty cool. By pretty cool, I mean really cool. Alright, oh, what the, my mouse disappeared for a second. I like how one of the things that pop up on the screen I'll let you guys know about that recommendations thing that shows up on the screen. Whenever I pulled up the video that played the theme, it just so happens that it says, up next, NES Godzilla Creepypasta, all chapters. And what am I reading right now? Anyways, back to the thing. Some people laugh at me for playing such outdated games, but I've never had as much fun, or as much enjoyment, I mean, for any games other than those on NES. Those 8-bit games take me back to when times were simpler. I've never messed up on something so simple in all my life. And the expression on my face, I'm just like, I'm miserable. Anyways, those 8-bit games take me back to when things were much simpler, more safe. But after what's happened with this game, I don't have those feelings anymore. I had forgotten how quick the fun of smashing things as Godzilla wore off in the scrolling levels. The game bombards you with bullets and things crashing into you from every direction, and you're too big to avoid most of them. Although my excitement had wore down some, it wasn't long before I got my first boss battle. My first opponent was Gezora, an obscure squid kaiju who had never been in a Godzilla movie. So it's never been in a Godzilla movie, but in a game. Exclusivity, you know? Anyways, the most annoying thing about fighting Godzilla is that he always backs you into a corner and starts smacking you with his tentacle. Ha ha ha. I'm sorry. Anyone reading or anyone hearing what I just said about tentacles, don't get any dirty ideas. Leave that to the weeaboos. Then again, I'm a furry, so I'm technically a weeaboo. I'm a furaboo. Scratch that. And you're unable to move until he gets off you. Dirty jokes. I'm kidding. This move doesn't do any damage, but it can stall you until the timer runs out and you have to start the fight over. And you regain some health. Oh, sweet, I got... I know it says 4 views, or 4 viewers, but one of them is me because I'm moderating my comments. But, it's annoying, it's as annoying as it sounds, and of course, he did it when I fought him. Only, for some reason, this caused the game to glitch up, because once he started smacking me, he never stopped. The timer is supposed to end the fight in about 40 seconds, but this lasted for nearly 5 minutes. After a while, the graphics started to mess up with little red blocks all over the place. The place? Do you even English? I'm saying that to myself. Also, yes, I did shave. Which was weird, but I just took the game out, blew on it, and started again. I wasn't about to let a little glitch stand in my way, so I started again and this time defeated Godzilla and the level's other boss monster, Magura, without any problems. So it was off to the next planet, Mars. I browsed around the board and found something unexpected. Where Varen's place should have been, there was instead a piece representing Titanosaurus. There was only 10 kaiju in the game, and Titanosaurus was not one of them. Or so I thought. Perhaps Titanosaurus was originally intended to be in the game but was swapped out with Varen for some reason? Anyways. Fought Godzilla again and beat him before he could do a cynical smack, but this time the glitch started happening when he died. Godzilla's sprite didn't sink to the bottom, but instead seemed to be devoured by the glitch, and his eye randomly started appearing, or spawning all over the screen. I now know the wording of this. I'm not saying that I worded it wrong. I did, but it's just the way they worded it in this. I'm not saying that's a flaw, it's just I was reading it wrong. I'm not saying I had bad eyesight, it was just because of the rate of speed I was reading it at. Anyways, I know now that these glitches with Godzilla were my first warning sign that something was very wrong with this game, but foolishly I ignored it and proceeded to fight Magura, who this time had a glitch of his own. Magura was twice the size of that he should have been, which startled me. He was also considerably harder to beat than usual, which is to say, not at all. But soon I had defeated him also, and when he died, yet another glitch happened. This happened extremely fast, so I was lucky to get a screen cap of it at all. But what happened was that the giant Magura sprite began to shatter and melt. Also, if you look at the garbled text of the right corner of the screen, you'll notice what appears to be a bird in the cage. I still had no idea what this meant. I was... That's what I get for turning on a game. At this point, I was about to fight Titanosaurus, and I was worried as to what kind of glitches would happen this time, but to my surprise, Titanosaurus looked just fine. Although all of the game's bipedal monsters were the same height, Titanosaurus was a bit taller. But since Titanosaurus was actually taller than Godzilla in his film debut, I thought this was kinda cool. After a very fun fight with a monster that wasn't supposed to be in the game, I took over the enemy base and proceeded not to Jupiter like normal, but instead to Pathos. Then, Chapter 2 happened. I don't know why I said happened. Maybe I'm just being a weirdo. Pathos was the same as Jupiter in layout, except the board was dark blue rather than green. The first thing I noticed was that all the usual level icons had been changed by a blue rock and some kind of orange honeycomb shape. There was one icon that had part of the jungle icon shape, but I didn't pay too much thought to it. I checked the other side of the board to see the new monster. Instead of Hedorah, it was Biollante. Or Biollante. Yeah, I know I'm kind of a new fan of Godzilla, but I don't know a whole bunch about it. Trust me, I will do research at some point. I'm just not a zillotologist. I'll go home now. Wait. I am home. Anyways. But that couldn't be right. Godzilla vs. Biollante didn't come out until 1989, and this game was made in 1988. Perhaps Toho put Biollante in the game to build excitement for their movie next year, but changed their minds? I tried to rationalize the game's abnormalities any way I could, but this would prove to be futile. Pathos' Map song was the first new song I had heard in the game. Like most of the new songs, it was hard to describe, but I'll try. It started out slow and suspenseful, much slower than any song in the game. But every 12 seconds or so, there would be a loud clashing sound, and the tempo changed. It was like the composer randomly played parts from 5 different songs with the same instruments. I moved Godzilla over to one of the many blue rock icons that had replaced the jungle icons and started the level. The level resembled a blue mountain range with a blood-red planet in the sky, but there was something odd about the mountains. They had a shredded paper look to them. I thought at first maybe the glitch had affected it, but it looked far too intentional. I quickly noticed something else about this new level. There were no enemies at all, not even any obstacles. I should also mention that this was where the point meters started to become glitched beyond comprehension, but it didn't bother me much. I never keep up with game points. Me neither. Okay, to an extent. So without having to focus on anything, I listened to the music while walking through the level unopposed. The music had a sorrowful feel to it. It would have been rather pleasant had I heard it in a normal game. level went on for 3 screens, but with no obstacles around, I finished it very quickly. I tried other levels of the same type to see if any enemies appeared, but there were none. There was little else to be seen in the Blue Mountain, so I tried the other levels. Level type, I mean. I was yawning. I started one of the orange levels, and my eyes were assaulted with a grotesque background of tumorous orange eyes. And my eyes were assaulted with a notification. I swear, I'm not tired or anything, and my eyesight's not bad. I'm just squinting. I don't know. The sky was the same as the ground, so I assumed the game was indicating that this level takes place in a cave. The only enemies here were Matengo spawn, but as you can see, the little bastards were everywhere. The music certainly didn't help, with a mixture of screeching sounds and loud drum beats that sounded like a monster's theme in a horror movie. Ah ha 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 ha! Creepypasta, horror movie. Oh, wait. Didn't they already do that? With, Slendy? It didn't do too well. As in, it fucking sucked. You played yourself, Sony. Good job. I say that, but I'm playing on a PlayStation, you know? Anyways... After completing it, I tried to avoid playing through any more of those levels whenever I could. The map was short, so it was only a few minutes before I headed towards a rematch with Godzilla and Magura, but this time their sprites and attack patterns were vastly different. I fought Magura first. Magura's replacement was a flying machine with a slight resemblance to Pascagoula alien. I hope I pronounced that right. Pascagoula? Or Gula? I don't know. It was a bit like fighting Mothra, only it moved with a lot more grace. It attacked by spinning its front tentacle like a corkscrew. Does this creepypasta have a tentacle fetish? Anyways, going on. It still had an I-beam, except now it fired from the drill. This slinky aberration had replaced Godzilla, and the new beast was more of a challenge. It would run and jump at a fast pace, constantly swinging its arms around, making it harder to get close. And of course it tried to pin me in the corner with as much annoying resolve as ever. I defeated it using a combination of tail whips and heat beam spamming. I defeated them and was going to fight Titanosaurus, but when I started the fight with Titanosaurus was nowhere to be seen, and the game simply went back to the map with Titanosaurus' piece now missing. There was no one left to fight now but Biollante, so I eagerly started the battle. I was quite surprised to see that Biollante started the fight in a rose form. She was immobile and used tentacles. Yeah, I think this has a tentacle fetish. Kind of interesting for a horror story, huh? You might say it's a spooky penetration. I like how as soon as I do that, there's a notification saying, your friend is now online. Anyways, to keep me away from the main body, which took the most damage. I said that I was continuing the story. Forgot to say I was going back. As expected, she turned into her final form after taking enough damage. The sprite looked pretty damn good for an 8-bit, I'll say. The battle technique was the same, except now Biollante could move, albeit slower than any other monster. Being hit by the tentacles did more damage now, and Biollante could do an acid spit, which I managed to avoid jumping in the screen cap. Or by jumping, I mean. Not much more difficult to beat than Titanosaurus. It only took 2 rounds, but when Biollante was gone, the music had stopped. There was a new icon replacing the bass. This icon wasn't there before I beat Biollante. It resembled a red tribal mask, and I had a feeling of dread when I saw it. That's our first red flag. But since it replaced the base, it must be the only way to escape Pathos, or exit back. It must be the only way to exit Pathos there. I moved Godzilla to the square and started the level. It was a hellish looking place with no sky, and a flickering fire in the background. The fire looked far more advanced than anything I've seen on the NES. There was music, but in the form of a slow, steady drum sound, resembling a heartbeat. All the text at the top of the screen and the life bar were gone. In their place was a single bit of text in the middle of the screen that said, "Run." My feeling of dread had intensified. I cautiously walked through the level, but like the Blue Mountains, there were no enemies. I paced around for a minute before thinking, run? From what? The first time it hit me, I didn't even see it. I heard a noise outside my room and turned back to see if anything fell. I was doing that for demonstration. And when I looked back, Godzilla was dying. I figured it must have been a glitch, but I wasn't going to play through the game without Godzilla, so I restarted the game and went to the password screen. Time to play music again. Glad I didn't get scared by that. Have I ever mentioned how creepy the password music is? If you played the game, you know what I mean. It doesn't at all fit the mood of the game. It's more like something from a horror game. Maybe they made it so that kids wouldn't cheat. I was quite annoyed at this point, because I thought I was going to have to fight all the monsters again. That didn't happen. The game started me off right where I was before I started the red face level. So I tried again, making sure to pay attention this time. That's when I heard a low, bellowing sound. That's when I heard, and then I saw it. This thing. By the way, that sound that playing in the background, or that's playing in the background, that's actually the sound of the main antagonist. Enjoy that. Thanks. That music playing just there before the thing. That was a McDonald's ad. Do you know that feeling your body has when you feel like you're in extreme danger? You start to recoil and tense up as the adrenaline flows through your veins, and your nerves start to feel very cold. That's the feeling I had when I took this screen cap. I haven't seen all of the Godzilla movies, but I'm pretty sure this wasn't in any of them. It had to be something the creators made up. But what kind of sick fuck would put this in a kid's game? By sheer dumb luck, or perhaps the adrenaline boost, I managed to run fast enough to get away from it. It ran very fast. So fast that if you saw it, you were almost certainly going to die. And when I say die, I mean your monster gets killed instantly if the monster touches them. Once I had gone back to the map, I was so afraid I was extremely tempted to just shut off the game and trying to pretend that this never happened. I can't believe what I'd just seen. It couldn't have been real. And even if I wanted to continue, I still had to get Mothra through this chase level. But as I stayed inactive on the map screen for a few minutes, my fear was replaced by burning curiosity. Just what the hell happened? What was the rest of the game like? I only had to beat this level with Mothra, and then it was on to the next world. But when I moved from Mothra to the red face, the game registered it as me beating the level. I was quite relieved. I tried to prepare myself for the next world. Trance. I was still pretty shook up from the last level when I started Trance. Trance's map music did nothing to ease the tension. As for how to describe it, have you ever heard the theme from Videodrome? That's the closest thing I can think of to compare it to. I checked to see who the new monster was, and it was Orga, a monster who didn't make his film debut until 2000. Appearing in a game made in 1988. So much for my theories about Titanosaurus and Biollante. There's no way this game was made in 1988. Sorry. Those guys at Toho might be smart, but I'm sure they couldn't see that far into the future. If they could, they never would have given Roland Emmerich the rights to make a Godzilla movie. No, this had to be a hack of some kind. Which opened up even more questions. Who made this hack? When? How? And most importantly, why? The why was the question that bothered me most. My immediate assumption was to think Billy did all this just to pull a joke on me. But That couldn't be right. Billy didn't know how to make a ROM hack. If he did, he'd probably just do something simple and stupid like replacing all the monsters with crudely drawn genitalia. Unless Billy had amazing game editing skills and a serious dark streak of his to his imagination that he never told me about, he couldn't have made this. Is it even possible to put a hacked ROM into a cartridge? In today's modern advances, yes it is. I should know because I've actually seen it. Aside from all that, my eye was drawn to a new icon on the map, a question mark, and I was really curious as to what it did. I'm sure you're also curious, so I'll explain the quiz levels now, since this was when they started appearing. There was one of these per map from here on, and they always appeared near the start of the map. When you start on a quiz level, you appear on a screen like this. I apologize to anyone thinking, oh, is there going to be a screenshot? I can't. I'm not running fancy hardware. I'm just doing what I can. I'm gonna turn on the fan. I could do that though. Oh well. I won't play any more music. I'm not saying I wanted to, it's just... whatever. As you can see, there's a question at the top, a yes and no button, and an emoticon at the center. I refer to the emoticon as face. Real creative, I know. And for convenience, I'll refer to face as the one asking the questions. The music for the quiz levels was a track actually in the game. It's the one that plays when you try to use the Ghidorah cheat and get sent to an unplayable level. Face asks you 12 yes or no questions, and you move your monster to the buttons for your answer. When you answer, the question disappears and Face changes expressions for about 8 seconds. Then he goes back to neutral and a new question pops up. There was no time limit, nor any right or wrong answers. Face has no respect for the player's personal boundaries. He will even ask you deeply disturbing and personal questions. For example, do you like hurting people? Have you ever killed or raped anyone? Have you ever been molested by a family member? I can answer no to all of those, by the way. What? There's actually a fan game of Face. It's a real thing. I've actually seen it on YouTube. It's actually really cool. I'm not talking from the story, of course. I'm like a... Hold on. Let me search and see if it's actually, you know, oh, bad idea! I was looking for face from the game. And no, it's not anything inappropriate. It's just... I saw this thing called Red's face. By the way, spoiler alert, that's actually the main antagonist's name, but... I mean... I did mention it, but... not that it matters. It's frightening, and it was actually a jump scare in a video that I watched that introduced me to the creepypasta. Yeah, can I just say that as much as I don't like, you know, jump scares because sometimes there's no build-up, the video I watched, or rather, like, it's really a compilation of multiple videos that were already uploaded. There was build-up to the jump scares. The one that I just saw, which is called Red's Face, is actually from a sequence that, like, I've already talked through this story before, and I even showed things off. So really, it's not a spoiler since I already did it. But, there's a point in this story where, on a, future area in the game, there's a boss fight called the Moon Beast, and after the main character Zack beats it, yes, that's our hero's name, Zack. What's really cool is why is Know Your Meme showing a video on Rule 34? Guys, Rule 34 has nothing to do with the Godzilla Creepypasta. Why? Ugh. Anyways, after Zack beats the Moon Beast, there's a sequence that occurs after that where during the story he explains that the Moon Beast reminds him of his girlfriend Melissa, who one night she was hanging out with Zack and she was looking at the moon. What happened next was actually really tragic and somewhat gruesome. She was looking at the moon, and in the story it's explained that she had these mental episodes where she just stayed perfectly still, being perfectly clear, just sitting there, zoned out. And in the story she was staring at the moon. All of a sudden she just got up from where she was sitting and ran right into traffic, where she was then hit by a truck and killed on impact. Zack could tell the game knew this because after the Moon Beast was defeated, there was a sequence where the game said, "Melissa, kill yourself." And then it had the words "kill" repeated on every inch of the screen. And then they layered over themselves. And then it showed Red's face. trying to emulate what it was looking like, but anyways, yeah. That's why I was like, oh god, bad idea, whenever I did that. Anyways, oh, back to the story, sorry for deviating. Already talked about Face having no respect for the personal boundaries of the player. So for all the yawning, it's pretty late. It's actually 10:30. Other times he would ask questions that were either mind-bogglingly stupid, is the sun hot, is water wet, or just flat out ridiculous. Does your dog like the president? And maybe once per quiz, Face would ask you a question about the game. With one exception, Face's expression, that was almost an alliteration, by the way. His expression changes seem to have no effect on the game, except for indicating what the game creator thought of your answer. His reactions rarely made any sense, and at first, I thought they were randomly generated. Could this be our first roguelike? That'd be awesome. Anyways, the questions never followed a pattern. Face never stayed on the same subject for more than 2 questions. Early on, there were questions that made me think Face was building up to something, only to then ask some stupid garbage. Here are the expressions of Face that I saw while playing. I'll separate them into 2 categories: the expressions I understood and the expressions I didn't. Here are the first expressions I understood. Number 1 is his neutral face. Number 2 is his angry face. If you try to attack him, his expression changes to this, but nothing else happens. Number 3 is sad. Number 4 is happy. Number 5 is sick. Number 6 is maniacal. This is the face that, well, Face made whenever he was being an asshole. You'll see what I mean later. Number 7 is surprised. 8 is love. Nine is annoyed. 10 is confused. 11 is guilty or hurt. And here are the other ones. Alright, so number 1 for that is just I'm not joking, number 2 is just like a straight serious face. Number 3 is number 4 is Face wearing a monocle and smoking a cigarette. Number 5 is just number 6 is just, you know, one eye face. Number 7 is just that hurt my neck. Ugh. My neck has been hurting because, like, I fell a couple days ago, or I think it was yesterday or the day before. Whenever I was checking the mail, and I was barefooted outside, and it's been raining for a couple days. Luckily, it didn't rain too much today, so I was able to walk. Like, it still rained, but whenever I started walking, it wasn't too serious. And it kind of picked up, but it was still manageable today. Anyways, yeah, whenever I slipped and fell, like, I caught myself by using my hands, and I used my right leg to, like, catch myself. and my hands were scraped, but they weren't like bleeding or anything. Although my wrist has been hurting for a couple days, but this has happened before, so it's gonna get better. But for whatever reason, whenever I landed, it literally caused my neck to start hurting. I don't know what happened or why it happened. It just happened. So yeah. Whenever my neck hurts like that, I can't really look around all that much. So if you guys see me, if I have like neck pain and you see me going like twisting my upper part of my body to look at something, that's why. It's because I can't turn my neck very well. Anyways, so I already showed number 7, which is just face going like, but it's upside down. Number 8 is buck teeth. I said buck teeth, not fuck teeth. Fuck teeth. I don't know. Number 9 is just ninja. I don't have a ninja thing. Number 10 is clown. Number 11 is, and number 12 is face with a cool looking face, RR, wearing sunglasses. I have sunglasses on my desk over there, but I'm not going to grab them. Anyways, 2 of these only appeared once, numbers 1 and 12. And I suspected they might have been in-jokes from the creator. Their respective questions were, do you like ice cream, and are you a tough guy? As for the questions in the first quiz, luckily I had a notepad and pen handy. I have problems remembering things, so I often carry one around just to jot things down, and sometimes I doodle in it when I'm bored. So the first quiz so when the first quiz I recorded, So when the first quiz started, I thought I would record what happened. I'm glad I did. Ugh, my brain's gone loopy. Here are the first series of questions, my answers and Face's reaction. Quiz number 1. Do you like the game? Answer is yes, and the reaction is happy. Are you afraid? Answer is yes, reaction surprised. Are you over 18 is question number 3. The answer is yes, and the reaction is weird face number 5. Question number 4. Do birds have teeth? No, is the answer. Reaction, love. Huh. Is peanut butter good? Is question number 5. Answer is no. Reaction, sick. Does the moon rotate? Answer, yes. Reaction, weird face number 11. Have you had a job? That's question number 7. Answer is yes. Reaction, confused. Do you like hurting people? Is question number 8. Answer is no. Reaction, annoyed. Question number 9. Is the sun hot? Answer, yes. Reaction, sad. Do you... Question number 10. Do you like dogs? Answer, yes. Reaction, happy. Is the president good? Answer, yes. Reaction, weird face number 3. Question number 12. Does your dog like the president? Answer, no. Reaction, angry. Now that I've explained all that, time for the gameplay. After the quiz level, I tried the new green temple icon first. Wow, maybe this is why the game was so weird. One of the developers was clearly drugged out of his mind. Jokes aside, I was quite impressed by the graphics of this level, as disorienting as they were. But I hate those creepy, blank, staring statue faces. The music had a hypnotic Indian techno vibe to it. There were 2 new enemies in this level, a flying ghost type thing with a trunk, and a bat with a horse skull for a face. They appeared at random, and I was lucky to get a screenshot of them both. I then proceeded to a blue mountain level, expecting another nice, calm stroll. I took my time walking through the level, and I was completely taken by surprise when this happened. Not Magara came speeding towards me and took off quite a bit of health with one of his tentacle screws. It only took me 2 minutes to kill him, without having to worry about a time limit. But the boss monsters never showed up in the scrolling levels in the normal game. I was worried as to what other rules the game might break. After another Blue Mountain stage, it was time to fight Not Baron. His replacement was one of the most bizarre things in the game. The strange creature attacks you by kicking, and also opening its chest and firing heat-seeking missiles. I still don't get it. The missiles were sometimes a pain to deal with, but I found out you could just tail whip them out of the way. Not Baron was probably the easiest of the monster replacements. The same could not be said for Not Hedora. Apparently the source of the skull of the horse bats, Not Hedora was the most aggravatingly difficult monster to fight yet, mostly because of his special ability. He could shriek and summon a small swarm of those horse bat things. I know there's only 2 in the screen cap, but every time he did this, about 10 would arrive. The AI took advantage of the distraction and attacked twice as fast while the horse bats were flying around. It's spooky. Once that annoyance was over with, I went through a green temple level to kill some enemies to restore my health. Interestingly, none of the horse bats showed up after Not Hedora was killed. And that was when I got an idea. If killing all the monsters makes the red face appear, what would happen if I avoid fighting Orga and go straight to the base? So I gave that a try. There's no monster here. The game told me there was no monster there when I tried to start the base level, and immediately afterward, the game took control of my Godzilla piece and moved it in front of Orga. My little trick didn't work, so I tried to prepare myself for another chase, but first I had to beat Orga. The fight with Orga confirmed another thing. Whoever created this hack was clearly a Godzilla fan. Not only because they picked a monster like Orga, but because they actually implemented something that happened in the Godzilla 2000 movie in a really neat way. Orga's primary attacks were a punch and a heat beam from his shoulder cavity, but once you got him down to half his health, he did something new. try to expand. He would expand his jaw and try to swallow Godzilla, in the process stealing your health and energy. But in doing so, he gave himself a new weakness. Firing a heat beam into his mouth would take a devastating 4 bars off his life meter. With that weakness revealed, I soon beat Orga, and despite how much I had hoped otherwise, the red face appeared on the map where the base was, and the music stopped. I readied myself as best I could. I started the level, and seeing that it was basically the same as the first, I didn't waste a millisecond before I started hauling ass. I soon encountered obstacles in the form of a ground pile, suspended in air. Most of them you could jump over or destroy, others you had to crash under. About 40 seconds into it, I heard the horrible bellowing roar and saw the spider beast following close behind me. Stacks of obstacles barely slowed it down. It would back up and then charge its way through them, smashing them into bits. And when the smaller obstacles got in its way, it would expand its jaws and swallow them whole. That's terrifying. I was afraid, but with fast thinking and faster button pressing, I escaped him yet again. I felt really excited this time. And so I laughed and said, "Not this time, asshole!" I decided to take a screen cap to celebrate. But when I said that sentence, just before the level ended, the monster did something that made my blood run cold. It looked at me. That wave of mortal terror overtook me again, and I sure as hell wasn't laughing anymore. I took another screen cap of the next level title, right before I rushed to the bathroom to splash some water on my face, and to take a piss that I nearly failed to contain when that fucking thing looked at me. The next world is dementia. You might think, oh, since you're yawning so much, you're probably tired. No. Chapter 4, Dementia. When I got back to the game, I was getting very upset and confused. Oh, hi. Just wanted to say hi, not seeing you around much longer, but interesting. Feeling pretty tired. I mean, it's 12 minutes till 11, but I'm not too tired. Yeah, I actually did do a narration of this creepypasta a couple months ago, but a few hours ago I watched a part of my original narration, and I thought I could do better than that. I won't be able to show anything because, like, I'll be streaming through the PS4 and I can't, like, switch stuff around and all that stuff just to try and show it. But I thought I'd do it over, you know. Anyways, I thought about the way the monster looked at me. The game couldn't have heard what I said. That's impossible. It had to be a random occurrence. But why did it happen precisely at the moment I insulted the monster? Oh, so you did hear them. Wait, are you playing the music? Like, are you playing music for you to listen to while I do this, or are you talking about me playing the music? Because if you're talking about me playing the music, like, my laptop is, like, a foot away from my laptop. Like, it's right next to it. So, like, it's able to capture the music, but it's not, like, crystal clear, perfect audio. Like it is capturing me. Oh. You know, the password menu theme really is creepy, seriously. It's like oh. Why am I stuttering so much now? Wait, Ryan, you do know about the creepypasta, right? Like, have you ever heard of it before I started doing this, or if that isn't creepy enough? Okay. Yeah, this creepypasta, like, out of all the oh, okay. So you have heard of the Godzilla creepypasta, right? The, NES Godzilla, yeah. Yeah, the NES Godzilla creepypasta, like, I've heard a few people say, oh, it's not that good. I think it's really good. Certainly better than the Jeff the Killer, Sonic.exe, and various other creepypastas that try to be cool. But, like, the creepypastas I've heard are, oh, well, at some point the game character hops out of the screen and eats you. This one, it's, like, it does have, like, one cliche, which is the haunted game. But it does it so well that it doesn't even feel like a cliche. It feels like something that, it's more like a ROM hack, sort of. But the way that the original creator of this creepypasta made all this, like, they've made custom sprites, they made custom levels for it. The amount of effort they put into this whole story is amazing. And, like, it's not one of those things where it's like, oh, well, at some point the thing jumps out at you. No. The closest it does to, like, interfering with the actual person in the story is, and this is another spoiler, but at the near end of the game for the player, yeah, why am I so much? Oh, right. On the final area of the game, the main character of the story actually has to fight the, main antagonist. Not, like, physically, I mean, like, in the game. And at some point, the monster, the main antagonist, actually starts to physically hurt the, main character as they're beating his monsters. By his, I mean the main characters. And as their last monster is killed, they start to feel like their life is fading away. But then another character, a supporting character, who's actually revealed to be the main character's deceased girlfriend, she basically revives him and gives him the monster Acacius. And what happens is, because of that, the main character is able to defeat the main antagonist, and yeah, you'll understand what I mean as the story goes on. But it's a really great story. I'd highly recommend reading it if you haven't, but I'm pretty sure you have. Anyways, nothing about this game made sense. The new Godzilla monsters, the weird replacement monsters, out of the place imagery, like the green temples, quiz levels, and the red monster chases. It didn't seem to add up in any kind of meaningful way. It was a prank. It wasn't very funny or any way I could understand, and they clearly put too much effort into it. If they were trying to make a genuine sequel with new Godzilla monsters, then why did they add everything else? Maybe it was some kind of art experiment? Some group project made by a bunch of really talented and crazy people and they lost the cartridge somehow? That's awesome. Or maybe they intended for some random person to find it. It was all just fruitless guessing. As far as I could tell, there was only one way to figure out what the deal is with this game. To play through it to the end. Maybe, just maybe, be something in the credits. An explanation by the creators as to why they made this. Maybe it could just be something more cryptic and strange. Maybe even something horrifying. Before I got a good look at the Dementia board, I considered replaying Trance to see if the red monster would look at me again, but I decided against it. I wanted to keep moving forward. I was also somewhat worried that backtracking might cause the game to become even more strange. The Dementia board music sounded a lot like the Saturn music, except it was slowed down and played with a piano-sounding instrument. Like most of these new map themes, it had a dangerous, suspenseful feel. While listening to the music, I looked at the Dementia board, and there were 4 boss monsters this time. Space Godzilla, Manda, Gigan, and Baragon. I was surprised to see that there were 2 new Toho monsters this time. The best surprise was still to come. I started the quiz level. Here's another list of results with the same format as the last one. Quiz number 2. Question number 1. Can you swim? Answer, yes. Reaction, happy. Question number 2. Do you like fish? Answer, yes. Reaction, sick. Question number 3. Can penguins fly? Answer is no. The reaction is sad. Can it spin in all directions is question number 4. There was no clarification of what Face meant by it, so I just guessed. Answer, no. Reaction, surprised. Oh. I didn't realize until just now that your comment said, I've watched that one before. Anyways, question number 5. Do you breathe oxygen? Answer, yes. Reaction, weird face number 8. Question number 6, and this is a weird one. Does it taste good when you bite a woman? I don't know who came up with this question, but I hope they're getting mental help. Answer, no. Reaction, annoyed. Is it night where you are? Is question number 7. What's ironic is that it's asking this in the story, and it happens to be like 11 p.m. here. Anyways, answer is yes. Reaction is weird face number 6. Question number 8. Do you like cats? Answer, yes. Reaction, confused. Question number 9. Is water wet? Answer yes, reaction angry. You know, concerning people who say water isn't wet, because according to this one guy's weird video where he keeps like zooming the camera in and out, like not like him moving his head a whole bunch, but like he keeps zooming his phone's camera in and out rapidly, like right on his face whenever he's talking. But he says to mean that something is wet means that something can be removed. You can remove water. I don't know. Anyways, question number 10. Have you ever broken a bone? Answer no, reaction happy. That's relatable. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Hi, Switch. Question number 11. Do you like your job? Answer yes, reaction hurt. And finally, question number 12. Would you like a new monster? Answer yes, reaction weird face number 11. I wasn't entirely sure at the time what face meant by a new monster, but I couldn't resist answering yes just to see what would happen. The result was mind-blowing. The game took me back to the board, and I had a new playable monster in the form of Anguirus. Ever since I was a kid, I always wanted to play as Anguirus, since he was my second favorite Godzilla monster. Plus, I never liked Mothra all that much. I moved my new Anguirus piece to the level next to it, eager to test out my new monster. Before I get to the level description, I'll talk about Anguirus a bit. Using the up and down buttons, you could choose whether Anguirus stood in a bipedal stance or crawled around on all fours. It wasn't a huge difference, but being able to stand up was helpful in boss fights, and crawling sometimes helped dodge attacks and obstacles. He could punch and kick like Godzilla, but no tail whip. Instead, he had something far more interesting. The ability to curl up into a spiked ball of death and roll around. You could still take damage, but it was lessened. It was a good way to clear out stage enemies, but unfortunately doing this also drained the power meter. But the spiked ball wasn't his only special ability. When you press start, he would fire a beam of energy from his mouth. It resembled Titanosaurus's sonar attack, and if this were a hack, it might have been inspired by the roar attack from the Atari's Godzilla fighting games. Also of note is that when playing as Anguirus, the level meter gets glitched up. Judging by the life and power bar, I'd say he's on level 10. Now on to the level. As you might have guessed from the level icon, these levels are green palette swaps of the ground and background tiles from the Blue Mountains. But what immediately caught my eye was the water, which has a transparency effect. Was that even possible for an NES game? I know the Super Nintendo could do it, but I've never seen a transparency effect in an NES game. The Green Mountains music was played with the same instrument as the Blue Mountains, but the melody was totally different. It was a very simple song with a lot of abrupt pauses, followed by a loud note every few seconds. Anyway, I went through the usual strolling through the level, and again there were no monsters or anything. Pretty soon, I'd reached a cliff above the water. There was nowhere to go but into the water, so down I went. The water transparency made things a bit harder to see, but it's tolerable. After going underwater, I encountered two new enemies, a giant piranha and some kind of spiky bottom feeder thing. I like the piranha because I could easily tell what it is. It was a scene enemy design that would appear in a real game, and there are very few enemies like this. It didn't take much hits to kill, but they were quite annoying and could considerably trim down your life if they got close. They also tend to travel in packs. As for the bottom feeders, they're easy to deal with. They swim along the bottom of the screen towards you, and are easily crushed with a roll attack or jumped over. In the screen cap, you can see me about to run one of them over, and there's a pack of piranha behind it. After I beat that level, I moved Godzilla onto the blue castle icon. I started the level and got a title screen with the text, "Unforgiving Cold." The level itself looked like a castle dungeon made of blue bricks with rows of identical white statue vases on the walls. These statue faces had a permanent look of horror on their faces. There was also some flickering gray static, which really didn't obscure my vision, but it also adds to the very unsettling mood of these levels. The music was a 12-second loop of a low-pitched choir vocalizing that sounded very familiar to me. Whenever I played through one of these levels, I got a sudden horrible feeling of anxiety. I had the feeling that the further I progressed through the level, the closer I was getting to something unspeakably evil. There weren't any enemies, but there were some of the longest levels in the game. I played one level, but it took 7 minutes to complete. Yeah, those statue faces, they're like... Yeah. Imagine that, but with no pupils or irises. I didn't want to admit it to myself at the time, but I realized something playing the castle level. This game has the power to make the player feel certain things. I don't mean in the sense that you get irritated playing a crappy game, or get unnerved by something scary in a game. What I mean is that certain events in this game can instantly make you feel something, or make you start feeling something. I know that sounds completely insane. I don't blame you for not believing me. I wouldn't believe any of this either if I didn't play the game myself. But there is something very, very wrong with this game, and I still don't know how to explain it. So, then it was time to fight Baragon's replacement. Although Baragon was originally the smallest monster in the game, his replacement was the largest. It was so tall, in fact, that the ground was noticeably lower, and not Baragon's head still barely avoided collision with the bar at the top of the screen. And he was just as frighteningly bizarre as he was huge. It's got a fucking mammoth skull. It looks cool. You may be wondering how he attacks without arms. He has the most powerful kick in the game, but his other fighting technique is even stranger. First, he blasts a cloudy breath of pixels down at you, which causes you to freeze. Then he walks back to the right of the screen and extends a huge Gatling gun from his abdomen. That might seem amusing to you, but it certainly wasn't to me when I was playing the game. This attack is almost as annoying as Gigan's Saw, and not Baragon Baragon could have been unbeatable if he'd consistently used it. Thankfully, he only did it twice while fighting him. Once you unfreeze, you can run up and start damaging the gun, which does extra damage to him. This helped me to destroy him. It was time to play the third level type. I decided that I was going to use Anguirus to fight Manda and Gigan, then fight Space Godzilla as Godzilla. It was only fitting. Before getting into the battles, I'll describe the third level type, the Arctic. The Arctic is exactly what you would guess from the name. An icy tundra with a new watery segment. The music reminded me of Northern Hemispheres from Donkey Kong Country in 8-bit form. A very dangerous sounding song. It made me think about being trapped in a tundra and freezing to death. I don't want to think about that. That's frightening. Even more frightening is like sinking in water while it freezes real fast above you. Nightmares. Like, have you guys ever seen that movie, some Guardians movie? Not Guardians of the Galaxy, but it's not The Last Guardian. I think it's Rise of the Guardians. Yeah, Rise of the Guardians. That's what it is. In that movie, there's a character called Jack Frost, and it's actually shown that they actually froze to death under the water. Imagine that, but the frozen parts of the water are freezing over the part of the water that broke rapidly. Okay. Yeah, that's terrifying. Anyways, let's just deviate from that and go back to the frickin' story. There were two new enemies in this stage. The first was a creature frozen in a block of ice. They blocked your way and you had to use the heat beam to thaw them out of the ice. They look a bit like a smaller version of Not Gizora, only without the eye. When freed, they do a strange crawling movement and push backward. It doesn't cause any damage, but it's a bit annoying. After dealing with the Iceman, there's a plane outside flying. I kept walking for a minute or two and came across a water segment. I jumped in, and this time I managed to get a screen cap showing how the water splashes when you jump in. Don't know how they programmed that, but it's pretty impressive. Another interesting thing is how the screen changes focus when you go underwater. Here you can see the other enemy, a little thing I call Spike Walker. They walk towards you and explode randomly or instantly if you attack them, sending spikes in every direction. The spikes don't do much damage, but they did get me dangerously close to falling into a pit a few times. Oh, speaking of the pits, down in the water, the game has a platformer element, bottomless pits. There weren't any of these in the original game since it was strictly an action game, but the pits were a neat addition. After getting back on land, I encountered a very unexpected mini-boss, Maguma, the walrus kaiju. I know this game had some obscure monsters to begin with, but wow, not that I'm complaining, it's a very cool cameo for an unappreciated kaiju. Maguma's fighting tactics were very simple. He had a freeze beam and could charge into you. Not very challenging, but certainly more entertaining than the Matango mini-boss in the original game. One really interesting thing about Maguma is that he doesn't die when you defeat him. Instead, he turns tail and retreats. This was the first time I had ever seen an enemy monster change direction, let alone retreat. I tried to chase after him, but he disappeared after I got in the water. Poor bastard. And that does it for the Arctic level. I'll talk about the Manda fight next. I forgot to mention before, but the music that played during the new monster boss fights is reused from themes actually in the games. So far the themes have been Titanosaurus' music is Gazora's music, Biolante's music is Hedorah's music, Orga's music is Baragon/Mogira's music, Manda's music is Varen's music, and Space Godzilla is Mechagodzilla's music. As for the fight, Manda was a fairly crafty opponent. When it realized one tactic was ineffective, it would immediately change to a different one. Manda used quite a few attacks, like spitting fire, biting, and the most irritating of all, constricting. Ugh. Yeah, after this chapter I'm gonna hit the hay and I'll do this tomorrow, probably. It doesn't mercilessly drain your life down like Gigan's Cutter, but it was by far Manda's strongest attack. One last thing to note that I found pretty cool was that the Atragon showed up during the fight to help me out. Manda crushed it with ease, but it was still pretty cool. After I slayed Manda, I played through an Arctic level for health power-ups, and then it was on to Gigan's replacement. When the fight started, I was very confused, because there was nothing there. I thought this was going to be like the Titanosaurus fight in Pathos, but just about the time it would have been going back to the map, a piranha appeared on screen. But it wasn't there for long. As soon as it appeared, the speakers emitted a ear-splitting screech, and not Gigan flew in and ripped the poor fish into pieces. Sushi, anyone? Well, that's one way to get the player on their toes. That abrupt entrance scared the hell out of me and got my adrenaline rushing, which in retrospect was a good thing because Not Gigan was one of the fastest, most unrelenting opponents in the game. Not Gigan was tough, but my new skills within Gears helped to even the score. This was still an incredibly intense fight. Not Gigan's attacks consisted of some sort of lead laser he spews from his mouth, and a downward slash. I was expecting some hellish variant of the buzzsaw attack, but thankfully there didn't seem to be one. The hell attack was invaluable in defeating him. I would have taken more screenshots of the fight, but I really had to concentrate. After that, there was just one more monster to take down, Space Godzilla. As mentioned earlier, I used Godzilla for this fight. Space Godzilla's fighting technique was rather frustrating, but admittedly a very clever idea. Space Godzilla would use his crystals to create two flying energy to... Wow. Then again, it's like almost 11:20 here. Space Godzilla would use his energy to create two flying crystals, which would reach the ground and become crystal spires. The spires not only block you from reaching Space Godzilla, but it also allowed him to constantly recharge to full energy. And blast you with a deadly, fully charged Corona beam until you broke the spires. Space Godzilla would eventually drain his own spires of energy until they shattered. but if you waited for that to happen, you'd probably lose a lot of life. Heat beams actually seem to re-energize the spires, so you had to use physical attacks. When I finally got close enough to hit Space Godzilla, he was no pushover. When I punched him, he hit me back just as hard. Space Godzilla does everything in his power to knock you back to the left corner of the screen so he can create more spires. By the time this was over, I had about 5 life bars left, but it didn't matter, because I didn't need to fight anymore. I needed to run. Here we go again. I decided right then that I really needed to see the end of this game. As terrifying as these levels could be sometimes, I had to beat them to get through. I decided that no matter what the game showed me, I was going to get to the end. I also made sure not to say a damn word while playing the chase level from here on out. For the chase level, I tried in gears. Since his roll attack allowed me to move faster than Godzilla or Mothra, the chase level started off like the first two, except there was a river of blood below the ground. I was beginning to get the hang of it, and the extra speed from the roll helped me get an edge on the red monster, especially since I didn't need to worry about a power limit and could keep rolling endlessly. Like the previous levels with water, the ground inevitably reached a stop, so I rolled right off into the blood. To my surprise, the hell beast didn't follow after me. It just stopped at the edge of the ground and grimaced. I guess it can't swim, I thought to myself, so I went under blood and continued to move. There wasn't anything around, but I knew something was up. The chase wasn't going to end that easily, could it? Surely something was bound to show up. And sure enough, I heard the bellowing roar, sounding slightly different. And the monster was following me in a new aquatic body. I had no idea that it was a shapeshifter. After it reappeared, the chase started to get into the difficulty I had expected. Being submerged slowed me down, putting me and the beast at about the same speed. The only thing keeping me alive was fast thinking and reflexes. I encountered some bottomless pits in which mines floated up from. I assumed that if you hit one, it would damage you and knock you back. That was my phone that did that sound. It was like bling. Considering how fast the red monster swims, hitting the mines would be instant death, so I went through great effort to avoid them. But that wasn't all I had to be wary of. Halfway through the chase, the hell beast revealed yet another surprise. A tentacle formed of intestine and tipped with a clawed set of jaws burst from its mouth, trying to pull me in and devour me. I only barely avoided both the tentacle and the mines, but I could tell the beast was getting desperate because the chase was nearly over. And about a minute later, I had spotted a bit of ground that served as the exit. I leaped up with all the might that I could muster without breaking my controller. The beast screamed with rage and jumped out of the blood in one last attempt to drag me under. But I escaped its grasp. This time. I fell back into my bed and took a deep breath, satisfied with yet another successful escape. I was headed to the fifth world. Entropy. And that's where we're going to end this. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. If you did, then please like, comment, and subscribe, as well as turn on notifications and let your friends know all about this channel. And, yeah. Next time on my narration redo of the Godzilla Creepypasta, we're going to be on Entropy. be aware, this next chapter is going to get really fucking dark. But with that being said, I love you all very much. Thank you very much for watching. And we'll see you guys next time. I was about to grab my phone.